Okay, so this is the fourth week end of my Virtual Studios event. It should have been the big weekend, of course, bank holiday. We've been very busy. It's a bit of a shame that we're not going to be able to do that. But on this weekend, I'm going to do an oil painting. It's an oil painting of a fox, Vixen. I was lucky enough to take a photograph of her about a month ago, a couple of months ago, which was quite a stunning picture. I was very lucky. Just one of these weird lucky chances that you get. And I particularly like the eyes and the lighting on this, so I'm looking forward to doing this. I'm working in oils because for fur and textures like that, I find oils a lot easier. I'll say easier, but you can get the texture. If you have been working in watercolour, this would all be very it'd either be very loose or you'd have to be very detailed. So I'm working in oils, and I've done pen and watercolour and pastel and acrylics over the last few weekends, so I thought this would be a nice opportunity to do something different. I've drawn her out in charcoal very sort of quickly. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to reinforce the drawing. I'm going to go around with some dark brown, black, and just make sure that I don't lose the actual drawing when I start to put the paint on, because it'd be, with this you just have to rub it and it would just disappear, so you'd be sort of working with nothing. You'd take away all the work you'd already done. And I've mixed that with liquid, so it's going to dry fairly quickly. And then after that, what we do is we're going to put in the background. The background is quite important. Well, we're going to block it in generally, should I say, with the sort of general base colours all over. What I'll do is I'll do some of this reinforcing of the drawing, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about sort of doing the next bit. Okay. Okay, so you can see I've drawn in the or reinforced the drawing. Do a little bit more of that and just show how to do that. Like I say, I've mixed brown and black together, the burnt umber and black together, and one other thing I forgot to mention is I've painted my canvas grey, or I've undercoated it grey. I always undercoat my canvases 2 or 3 times, pre-prime them, should I say, 2 or 3 times before after I've bought them. I'll make this, which I think gives it a slightly smoother surface. I don't want my canvas to be too textured, especially when you're doing portraits and stuff. It doesn't matter so much for this, but I still prefer to have a little bit more paint, sort of primer on the canvas. Okay, so like I said before, I'm working around burnt umber, using liquid to make it dry faster, and I'm just sort of sketching it in, basically just following where I put my drawing, so I can just, only means that I'm not going to lose the drawing when I come to actually do the blocking in. And the blocking in is what we're going to be doing next, and it's just going to be putting on sort of base colours all over. So principally this is mainly yellow ochre raw sienna, something like that. That's going to be the sort of primary colour, with some burnt umber, a bit of raw umber maybe, as a sort of base colour. Obviously in oils we're working from dark to light, which is another reason why I wanted the sort of grey canvas. It gives a more neutral effect in terms of tonal balance. And we'll get ready for the next bit, and I'm just going to start blocking in, and I'll come back and we'll talk a bit more. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with the blocking, the drawing in. What I'm going to do now is the blocking in, and what I'm going to do is start with the background first. I'm going to put it in fairly dark, because obviously we're one of those who work from dark to light. And I'm going to use burnt umber, and black again. I'm going to put it in kind of the way the foliage is going. The background sort of texture. Okay, so I'll do a bit more of that, and then I'll come back and we'll start blocking in the fox. Okay. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with the background now, just blocked in. You can see how it's sort of bringing it out a bit more. And I haven't filled it all in, because that doesn't matter, because I'm going to be going over this and going over it with all sorts of different colours to create this layered effect. The secret of this is that you have to put sort of one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, so you create the same effect as you have in the photograph. One thing which gives it depth, which is very important, but not just, I'm going to go from light to dark, even though generally working from dark to light with oils, it will go backwards and forwards with sort of different colours. Now with her, Okay, we're going to start blocking her in. I'm using Indian yellow and burnt sienna. I'm not worried about the light bits too much at the moment. I just want to get some colour on her. Okay, so you can see I'm sort of getting a bit of colour onto the face. I will leave what I'll do with the white areas is I won't put this colour into it, I'll put some grey into it because I want a sort of a base colour for that. So I'll carry on and fill that in, and then I'll come back and we'll have another chat when we start getting into a bit more detail. Okay, so you can see the pictures coming on, the painting's coming on. I always think this is the best part of the painting because I always think this is a much more exciting bit. You know, this has taken probably about 3/4 of an hour, half an hour or something to do, to block it all in. And sometimes you think, well, perhaps I'll just leave it like this, you know, but because it's going to take another 15 hours to sort of finish the painting. So this bit and the sort of very final bit, which is when we're just finishing stuff off, are the sort of best bits of the painting. The bit in between is kind of like quite hard work because you've got to, you know, you've got to go backwards and forwards and change things, and sometimes it doesn't look very good, and sometimes it, you know, you're not happy with it. But anyway, you can see how I've blocked all this in, put in sort of base colour straight from some of the dark areas, so we get a bit more form. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to finish the background, and I want the background finished so that we can cut in with this here. This is not like watercolour, we don't sort of cut round things, we paint over the top of them, and that brings it forward. The only trouble we have here at the bottom is that we do have some of the foreground coming over, tail, etc. Okay, we can do that later. That wouldn't be a problem, but certainly around this area here, we certainly want this finishing off, so we can cut in with all this hair over the top of that. So I'm going to use a sort of combination of lights and darks, probably some greys as well. In fact, first of all, I'm going to actually put some grey in on here, but that doesn't matter at the moment because I'm not really dealing with it. But anyway, I'm going to put some variation of colour in here, even some bits of green, and keep it fairly loose, but sort of insinuating the kind of movement of all this tangled stuff at the back. Okay, so I'll do some of that at the top here, and then we'll come back and have a look at it later on. Okay, so as you can see, I put in some light stuff, sort of streaks like this, and now I'm going back over it again with some dark, almost black, basically. I'm kind of filling in between the sort of stems, if you like, with some black, just taking away some of this light grey colour that we'll have underneath. Okay, so I'll carry on with that. You can see what I'm doing, and like I say, this is going to be 3, 4, 5 layers of light, dark, and finally we'll kind of we won't finalise it, but we won't sort of tidy it up, but we'll get it just a little bit closer to the sort of mark. But what we're doing is creating all this kind of underneath mesh here, sort of mesh of stuff one in front of the other, and to give it some depth. Okay, see you in a bit. As you can see, I'm treating the bottom a little bit differently here. This is all shorter stuff. It's actually on the bank of a little pond, just lying on the edge. So this is kind of grass coming down. You might just be able to see it in, no, you won't see it in the photograph, I don't know, the other photograph. So I put in this kind of dark stuff, but in shorter strokes. And now I'm adding some yellow ochre, just to create these, putting in again randomly, just following the kind of direction of the, like this. So you can see as I'm putting the darks in, I'm creating a little bit of sort of shaping there. Again, I know you work from dark to light, but we have put the dark in first and then put some light. And like I say, this is a layered effect, so we have to keep going back and putting sort of light, dark. And you can see I've done that up there. Put quite a lot of dark in between these bits here. Just dabbed it in, created a bit of shape, but also a little bit more depth. Okay, so this is going to take a little while. So what I'll do is I'll just carry on, hopefully until I about finish this, and then we'll come back and look at the fox, because obviously she's the important bit. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, I've gone about as far as I want to go with the background at the moment. It does need more work. Like I say, you know, this painting has taken sort of about 2 hours to do so far, and obviously made quite a lot of progress, but there's a lot more work to do. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working on the fox. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some grey into the light area, the grey-brown to the white areas, and I'm going to fill in the paintwork a bit more. some lights and dark, but the most important thing I'm going to do before I go too far is to do the eyes, because the eyes are, in most paintings like this, whether like a portrait of an animal or a person, the eyes are the most important thing. That's what you look at first. So the eyes have got to be right, and there's not much point in doing most of the rest of the paint, putting all this kind of lovely sort of texture in if you haven't got the eyes right. The eyes, nose and the ears are kind of the important bits, and then everything else sort of filters out from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get a little bit of the kind of grey colour, warm grey colour. I'm just going to paint in where the ears are. Okay, so I'll leave it there now, and I'll carry on filling it all in. You obviously don't want to see doing all that, and I'll come back and start looking at putting a little bit more detail in the eyes, nose and ears. Okay, speak to you later. Okay, so I've blocked in the fox, put in a bit of sort of light and shade, just roughly. As I said before, what I'm going to deal with next are the features, the eyes, nose, ears, particularly the eyes. I'm going to use basically Indian yellow, perhaps some raw sienna, with a little bit of white. Fox's eyes are like dog's eyes. They're very soft because they have a skin over their eye to protect them, which kind of softens the pupil. You notice that the pupil in dog's eyes are quite soft. They're not defined like our eyes. So everything has to be kept slightly soft. And usually the reflection coming off the eye has a slightly blue tint to it where the pupil is, which I've put in, which gives the kind of impression of the light being reflected off the eye because of the skin. So I'm going to start with the yellow ochre, and this wants to be done very softly, very gently. I may have to use a smaller brush, more like a sable, to do this, but I'm going to leave this at the moment. Do the other eye, put the nose in and do a bit of work to the ears, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of sort of refining of the eyes. I'll show you how that's done, but I'll show you but I'll do the other bits first and then come back and have another look at it. Okay. Okay, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of structure in the face now. The eyes aren't finished; they want sort of a little bit more, well, quite a bit more work. But basically, this is like the sort of third stage of the painting, if you like. The first stage was drawing it in, blocking it in, and the second stage was doing some of the background and sorting that out. And the third stage was this, where we're actually getting some structure to the face. We can see the sort of shape of the fur. We've got some of the detail in the eyes. So I'm sort of fairly happy with that. I'm going to carry on and do a little bit more work around here. What's important, I'll just do a little bit of this. I'm now coming in with sort of light colours into the existing colour, not that strong, into the existing colour. So I'm lightening it up. So I'm using the wet colour that's already on here to, it's quite a lot of white. So I'm now flicking it out into this. Is why we have to do the background first, because I need to sort of flick this out into the background. Put one layer on, you put another layer on, dark light, until you get somewhere, you get some depth to it. And refining everything as you go along. You're refining all the kind of texture and the sort of blending as you're doing this. Okay, so I'll do a bit more because there's quite a lot to do in the body here. Do a bit more to that, and then we'll come back and have another look at it in a little while. Okay, so I've nearly got to the end of the first day of painting. As you can see, it's come on quite well. I'll just show you this. I'm just working on the ears at the moment. I'm saying, you know, we're light into dark. There's obviously wet paint here, dark, but you can still apply light over dark. And actually, it's an advantage for it to be a bit wet because you can then just pull it in like this. But as I said before, you need to apply this very gently. In fact, I think the ear probably wants to be a little bit bigger. I'll be a little bit careful because we've got some shadow in here, which is obviously going to stick. I mentioned that before, which we obviously don't need. I've got to be careful because that does affect what's happening around her nose and her eye here. Okay, so we'll leave it there for today, and I'll start again tomorrow and start tidying this up, getting it a little bit more of the detail into the fur, getting it a little bit more sort of colour slightly more accurate, and the shape of the nose, eyes, stuff like that. Okay, see you later. Okay, so I've done quite a bit of work on the face now. I've done quite a bit of work on the ears, still a little bit more to tidy up. What I'm doing is I'm actually putting in the detail now. I'm using a thinner paint. I'm using Stand Oil mixed in with the oil paint, so it's not quite so big. Obviously you can see I'm putting the sort of detail in the kind of light areas here. What I want to do is I want to put them in, and then what I do is I kind of go over it with another colour, two or three colours, and soften it down slightly, because although I want the texture of the hair to be obvious, I don't want it to be too severe that it looks unnatural, so it's a little bit of softening. So I'm using sort of two brushes. One is like a sort of standard watercolour brush, which I'm putting the marks in with, and I'm using a light like white and yellow ochre, light areas. Okay, so carry on with this for a bit, do a bit more work to the side of the face, and then I'll come back and we'll have another look, sort of dealing with that half. Okay. Okay, so I'm a bit happy with this side of the face now. Still wants a bit of work, but what will happen is that when I've finished doing what I think is enough of the detailing and the paint has dried up a bit, I'll do a bit of glazing just to sort of accentuate the shading and give it sort of a little bit more variation to the colour. I perhaps add a bit, but the glazing is quite important. It's a very important part of oil painting, but it comes in towards the end, really, when this work's done. And we want to sort of just change things slightly, but not too much in terms of sort of paint work. We can add a bit more shadow or a little bit more colour just by sort of wiping very thin colour over the top of it. Okay, so I'm going to be working on the nose now. Quite an important part of the face, the nose. I've kind of blocked it in. Now I'm going to be putting some darks in. It's going to take a little while. I'm going to work around the nose, and then I'll start over here. I'm going to come down. First I'm going to put the eye in, because as I said before, the eye is very important. Not happy with that. That's only was just blocked in, not finished off. I want to get it more to the kind of stage that one's at. Okay, so I'll do that, and then we'll come back and have a look at this eye. Okay, so I've made a bit of progress with this side of the face, done a bit to the muzzle. You can see that's not far off. We need a bit of, but again, I think most of the remaining stuff on this side of the face and bits like that will be done with glazing. What I'm going to do is this eye. What I'm using is yellow ochre and white to start with, just to put this in. And I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber to the yellow ochre, just to mix them together to create this kind of slightly warmer colour. And then I'm going to put the pupil in. I'm going to use black and light brown. As I said before, the pupil tends to be quite soft. It's a little bit more defined on this side because of the light on it, but usually we get a little bit of blue. We're in that reflected area here. We're going to put a little bit of blue in there. Similarly down here, just around that corner of the eye, just finish that off, tighten it up a little bit, put a little bit of sort of light on there for some reason. Okay, so that'll probably do for that. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to finish off a little bit of this face here. Needs a little bit more work on around the nose and the muzzle here, and then I'm going to look at doing this. This is going to be done a little bit more freer. Big brush. This is a small brush, which obviously is quite a lot of detailing in there. Don't like using small brushes all the time, but for this it's needed. I can't get my brush sort of flat enough to get these kind of little strokes with hog's hair, so I've had to use the softer brush. So I'm going to do that, just finish that bit off, and then we'll have a look at putting this in, because this is a bit more fun really. You can let yourself go a little bit with the kind of hair, because it's all kind of fluffy. There's no real sort of definite shape there in a sense. It's all kind of all over the place. Okay, so I'll do that, do this, and then we'll come back and have another look. Okay. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with the face now. It needs more work, and like I say, when it's dried off a bit, I'm actually going to do some glazing over it. Still little bits to tidy up. But what I'm going to deal with now is the body and the tail. I mixed up yellow ochre, some cadmium red and some Indian yellow, and I'm going to start putting the colour into the body here. This is going to be done much freer, as I said before, sort of bigger brush. I don't want to be sort of slave to this. And broken, she's kind of mottled on the back end as well as being grey. I've also put a paw in there because there is actually one here, you can just see it. It's not very clear, but I quite like the idea of her paw coming under her chin. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll complete this bit here, and then we'll come back and have another look at sort of finishing off. I've got some dark to put in there, and maybe a little bit more dark, but then I'm going to tone this down, blend in the sort of colour into there, but still keep the texture. I don't want to soften it, I want to keep it nice and textured. Some quite long sort of strands of hair coming up through here like this. It's going to have to be done sort of like that, much longer strokes down the bottom here. The hair is actually much longer on the tail. Okay, so I'll do that, and then we'll come back and have another look. Okay. Okay, so day 3. As I said, I was going to put the stick in. I've moved it, as you can see in the photo. It's close to her face. I've moved it across, but I've kept the shadow because I want to use the shadow to accentuate the form, and also this gives a little bit of kind of tension, the shadow going through her eye, but it also puts her behind something, creates another layer. So we've got the grass behind her, then this, and we've got some other twigs to go on the bottom here before we finish off. I've nearly finished the sort of body part. There's just a little bit of tidying up, and but I'll just show you what I'm doing with the stem of this reed. I've started with basically white, a little bit of yellow ochre, some raw umber mixed together, and to create a sort of slightly browny grey colour. I put that on as a base colour, you can see that there. Now I'm coming back with burnt umber and a little bit of raw umber. I'm going down the sort of the length of the stick like this, creating a little bit of texture. I'm just dotting it along the edge, the black, and I'll probably come back and just dot in a little bit of it here and there as we come down. Okay, so that's basically how I'm doing the stick part of it. I'll carry on because I've got quite a few more to put in here. I put the shadow in, but I'm not happy with the shadow. The shadow needs softening down. So in the next bit that I'm going to do, actually I'm going to show you some of the glazing techniques I'm going to be using on the fox. She needs a little bit more sort of colour, maybe very thin, just maybe slightly more gingery around here. We could do a bit of glazing with sort of shadows coming in from behind here. We haven't really got a shadow, which is in the picture there. That could be glazed down in that area, made a little bit darker. And the shadow wants softening in, that wants glazing in. So it looks as if it's kind of, you know, like a line drawn on the face at the moment, which is not very good. So we'll soften all that. Okay, so I'll finish off my twigs and then I'll come back and we'll have a look at the glazing part of the painting. Okay. Okay, so I'm about finished now. I'm quite happy with the painting. I've done quite a bit to this side. Put my sticks in, added some more grass, brought this down, finished off around the edges where the bits not done. And now I'm going to do a bit of glazing. This is all dry here. I'm not happy with the shadow across there. I have kind of blended this in a little bit when I've redone part of the tail. And that looks a little bit better. Still wants a little bit of broken stuff, but this is a bit strong. What I'm going to do is add a little bit more colour to the face and maybe a little bit of shading. And like I said, I'm using Stand Oil, which is basically, I make my own. It's just half and half turps with linseed oil. And what it does is it makes the paint dry faster, but keeps the gloss. So that's it basically. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and if there's anything you'd like to ask me about it, as before, you know, my telephone number is 07802 758 430, and my email address is max.neale, Neale, at btinternet.com. So this is my first, so all I need to do now is just to sign it. I'm going to sign it sort of, not sure really. there or there. I'll probably put it here because there's a sort of gap there. I'm not going to use white, I'm going to use a sort of creamy colour. Okay, so it's not obvious, but that's fine. I don't want it to be too obvious. It looks a little bit like the foliage. So that's it. Okay, so goodbye until the next time. Bye.